What's going on, y'all? Psych Perspectives, GeoFucks here. I'm on my way to the gym. I want to talk about student loans, and I'm going to continue to talk about student loans. In my opinion, student loans is another method of predatory lending. This is no different than what we saw in 2008 with the subprime loan crisis, where you had all these people that were approved for mortgages despite the fact that they had low credit scores, didn't have adequate income. Like, you would literally have somebody getting approved for a $200,000, $300,000 house, and they were barely making $40,000 a year. And their credit scores were like low, like lower than 640. Okay, but they were getting approved, and that's why they were calling them subprime loans. And those subprime loans during the 2008 financial recession, led to people having massive foreclosures all over the country. People lost their homes, people filed bankruptcy, people, like I said, they foreclosed on their homes, they were evicted, they were put out. It was just a chaotic situation that was highly avoidable had we had better procedures and restrictions on who could and couldn't get loans for mortgages. And they were also sold the same lies. You know, oh, it's not that hard. Nobody was really educated on how mortgages work, with a 15-year rate, with a 30-year rate. No one knew that, you know, you could do an FHA or a VA if you are military personnel or veteran, USDA, rural development. No one knew about the interest rates. Nobody talked about refinancing. There was a lot of information that was left out, and people were just signing their signatures on the dotted line and essentially signing their lives away, and not realizing all of the red flags, because nobody was educating them about that. And in my opinion, what took place in 2008 is no different than what has been going on with student loans, whether you have them federally or privately, or a combination. In my opinion, student loans is predatory lending. Because number one, a large population of us, when we started taking out student loans, were literally between the ages of 17 and 20. So you mean to tell me a 17-year-old is going to be able to understand the implications of taking out student loans, let alone going to be able to pick a sound major to study in that's actually going to be worthwhile, not only for them because they like the material and the coursework, but is actually going to lead to a decent paying career, job, opportunity? Oh, and by the way, sign the dotted line, you know, because a lot of us were told between, again, a nice population between 17 and 20 years old, were told, sign the dotted line, just take out the student loans. That'll help pay for tuition, that'll help pay for books, that'll help pay for food, that'll help pay for housing. And then let's be honest, a lot of these so-called colleges and universities, oftentimes when you would go into the financial aid department of that university or college or institution, it was mostly ran by other students. So it wasn't like you were going to a financial professional. You were literally going to a student that was working in the financial aid department because they had a work-study job. So a lot of times you wasn't even going to somebody that you should have been going to get information about the student loans. Let's keep it real. You know, because let's be honest, when I was going to college, when I think about 2012 or 2010 through 2012, so I was literally 17 to 19 there, you know, in that range. Thankfully, I had a full ride scholarship to a junior college. Go Bears, Mott Community College. So my first two degrees, my two associate's degrees, was free because I had a full ride. Okay, and then I paid, and mind you, that paid for tuition. It didn't pay for books. And I had, thankfully, it's a privilege and a blessing to have a scholarship, and also to have family and friends, because I had an open house. So the money that I got from my open house paid for my books. So I recognize the privilege and blessing that is to have, and I don't take it for granted. But when you would go into the financial aid office to discuss things, you were literally, for the most part, you were talking to work-study students. Now, there were actual, professionals in there, but for every one professional, there were like 3 to 4 work-study students. So the likelihood of you actually talking to the professional wasn't very high. You were more likely going to be talking to another student. And I'm just keeping it real. And it's not to downplay the student, because the students could well be business finance majors, be professional, have all of this experience and intellect about the loans and what have you. I'm not saying that. However, that wasn't always the case, and that's kind of obvious. So you're literally being told to sign the dotted line. A lot of us were sold propaganda regardless of age, because I really, when you pinpoint it, when you look at Generation X and Millennials and Gen Z, but more specifically, I would say Gen X and Millennials, we're literally sold this propaganda on how getting a college education was going to improve our lives. We were literally told, you don't want to work in fast food. You want to have a good paying job, a good paying career. You want to make good money. You go to college and you get a degree. And notice it was you go to college and you get a degree. For the longest, there was no real discussion about, yeah, you can go to college and get a degree, but caveat, it's certain fields of study, certain majors make good money. All degrees don't make good money. And granted, everybody's not going to college to make money. Everybody's not going to college to get a job. Everybody's not going to college to get a career. However, it's a nice amount of people that are. And again, we were sold this propaganda that we were going to be rolling in the dough once we graduated with our college education, with our college degree. Now I'm gonna be real. I started hearing more and more about STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, around 2012, 2013. But by then, I was already halfway through my program. You feel me? So again, I had already had 2 associate's degrees and was basically had 2012, 2013, especially 2013, had less than a year to go to get my bachelor's. So obviously I'm not going to just change my program all of a sudden and then have to take additional classes to go into more debt and then to waste more time. You know what I mean? So I was already there. And in all fairness, everybody don't like math and science. That's not everybody's thing. Okay? And then also, let's keep it real. The USA K through 12 public school system is horrible. It does not prepare you for college, let alone science, technology, engineering, math, healthcare. So again, you're not even getting the basis. The basics aren't even quality. So by the, you know what I mean? That's a whole nother video. But anyways, so you got the propaganda machine. I mean, literally, I'll never forget this, and I always bring this up. 2000. I was in 3rd grade 22 years ago, 2000. Okay? 2000 to 2001 was my 3rd grade year. We were being told then, 2010, 2010, 2010. And what's 2010? That's when you graduate high school. They were already prepping us in 3rd grade for college. So that's why I'm like, a lot of us were already on the college track. We didn't have a say-so in that. Our parents fed into the propaganda. The school districts fed into the propaganda. The community fed into the propaganda. Everybody was being told. And let's be real. Don't you remember those commercials back in the day with DeVry and ITT Tech and all these places literally telling you, you're sitting on the couch, you're not doing anything, you're unemployed, you're not making a lot of money. Why don't you get up today and apply for DeVry? I went on the internet and found out college connection. You know, all those commercials and the little jingles, they were literally pushing people. Davenport University, they was Phoenix, they was pushing people to go to college. Like I said, the propaganda that was sold, okay? And again, I didn't hear about STEM personally. And I'm not saying this to blame, but I'm just saying it was predatory lending in my opinion, okay? I didn't hear about STEM to 2012, 2013, and that's just keeping it a buck. You know, so we go to college, we take these loans out, and then like I said earlier, a lot of people who end up taking these loans out, there's a nice population. Like I said, you're 17 to 20 and being told that this is how you can pay for school. Which brings me to my next point. And this really needs to be talked about more, because this was before the economy was shit. A lot of our parents and family members should have done more to actually save for their kids' education, because it don't really make sense how you got all these people talking about, how you know, they're going to college and they want everyone to go to school and get your education and this, that, and the other, but yet none of them was saving for you to go to college. Like, what? How you gonna be telling your kid to go to school, and yet you're not doing anything to save for them to be able to pay to go to school, but yet you want them to go to school? I'm just gonna keep it real. A lot of our parents and family members were uninformed, ignorant, and fell for the same propaganda that we fell for, and was careless with their own damn finances. Because again, you have a lot of baby boomers who came up from down south, came to the Midwest, came to the Northeast, was able to lock and load into factory jobs, working at these factories, working for these automotive companies, what have you, and was essentially making the equivalence of six figures in the 60s and 70s and didn't do shit with their money, okay? Which brings me to a whole nother piece. The lack of financial literacy in our communities also plays a big role in why we keep making bonehead decisions with our money. Because it doesn't make sense how you was basically making the equivalent of six figures in the 60s and 70s. And granted, that's not everybody. That's not everybody. I'm not saying everybody came up from the South during the Great Migration and landed those jobs, but a lot of us know people that did. And fast forward 50, 60 years later, these people are broke and destitute and didn't do shit for their families. And it's like, what happened to all that money? And how is you working somewhere for 30, 40 years and you're broke in itself needs to be questioned. And why would we want to continue a system that's like that? But anyways, you know me, I'm going to go there. I'm going to have more videos. So, you take out these loans. I took out my first student loans. I took out in December of 2012. Because remember, my first 2 years, my first 2 degrees, I had a full ride. When I transferred to the university to finish my degree, because mind you, I had 2 associates, I was going to get my bachelor's. I got partial scholarships, and those partial scholarships did not fund the entire tuition, let alone books and everything else. So I had to take out student loans. I took out subsidized and unsubsidized federal government loans. Little caveat. My mother wasn't doing her taxes, so I couldn't use her information at all. Even when I was a freshman, I couldn't use her information because she didn't give me her tax information. It was a whole huge issue. So luckily for me, I basically was considered an emancipated minor, which is kind of funny. So I was able to use my money, my tax information to get approved for student loans and to get financial aid. Long story, I will definitely do a video to discuss that. So I ended up getting like $20,000 that got approved in December of 2012 for me to pay, because thankfully, my grandparents, they paid the remaining balance, and then they told me, look, you're going to have to take out a student loan. You know, we're not going to be able to pay this, which hindsight's 2020. They could have paid for me to go to school. They chose to not pay for me to go to school. This is why I'm not angry, but I'm just going to say a lot of our families be setting us up for failure. I'm just going to keep it real. And rather that's because they're ignorant, uninformed, fell for the same propaganda that we fell for, or just straight up selfish and don't really give a damn. Because we got to keep it real. They had money. They always had money. It made no sense that I was taking out student loans to go to school, but I'm just going to keep moving forward. So I took out $20,000. It was unsubsidized. With that being said, or it was subsidized. So with that being said, I didn't have any interest accruing as long as I was in school. And then after I graduated, I had a 6-month grace period before the interest would kick in. So had all that going on. Got more scholarships. They were mostly partials, which brings me to this. Like, I don't understand how these colleges and universities do not offer more full ride scholarships, especially if you're a transfer student. Basically, you can only really get decent scholarships as a freshman graduating high school coming in, or certain grad and PhD programs will completely fund you, or at least your tuition and maybe your books and housing. That's kind of up there. But if like you're just a freshman, or if you're a transfer student, or you're a junior, it's so difficult to actually get quality scholarships. I'm just gonna keep it real. So you're getting like partials, you know, they might give you $3,000, which you would think $3,000, that's a lot. And don't get me wrong, I was very thankful, very grateful. You know, it was a privilege and a blessing to be able to get funding, to be able to go to college. However, what the hell is $3,000 going to do for you when you're going to a college that's $25,000, $30,000 a year? Like, it's not substantial enough to even be like, what's the point after a while? And then keep in mind, you got books. We just talking about tuition. You got books that's $200 and $300 for one damn book. And mind you, you got 4 or 5 other classes, not to mention some of these classes, especially once you start getting into upper level and or graduate level courses, the class could have 3, 4, 5 different books for one class, and you got other classes. So it gets really costly after a while. Okay? So luckily for me, I graduated in 2014. And because the way I did with that $20,000, I saved a lot of that money. So I was able to pay my student loans while I was actually in school. It was really wild how I was doing it. Plus I paid for my spring and summer semester, paid for my books. I was doing... Anyways, so I graduated with my bachelor's and I only had $13,000 of student loan debt. And that's because I was paying for it the entire time. It is what it is. The bulk of my student loans came when I went back, and I'm keeping it real. You know, I'm full accountable. I'm accountable. My student loans the bulk of my student loans came from me going back to get my master's degree. And mind you, I had scholarships going to grad school, but they were partial scholarships. And again, if one class at the time, because this was 2015 to 2017 when I was in grad school. At the time, if one class is $1,600, what the hell is $1,000 going to do for you? That's not a substantial scholarship, but I'm thankful and grateful nonetheless. So I basically tacked on an additional $33,000 of student loans between September 2015 and April of 2017. It wasn't even a full 2 years. It was literally a year and a half. Because I mean, I basically did a triathlon in grad school because it was easy for me. I'm just gonna be honest. Plus, when I was an undergrad, I was already doing grad level courses. Like a few of my classes that I took, I got dual. So I got dual credits. I got my undergrad credits and my grad credits. So I only needed 30 more credits to get my master's degree. So that's why it was so like quick for me. It wasn't because I was already taking grad level courses junior and senior year as an undergrad. So but you think about that. You mean to tell me in a year and a half, we're talking about 18 months, and you get $30,000 to $33,000 in debt and that quick? Yes, that's how they do us. Plus, they charge extra when it's grad level. So at the time, you know, your undergrad would be like $308 per credit. Where grad school, your credit hours were $600 per credit. You know what I mean? They doubled it basically. Even though it was at the same school, same professors, and quite frankly, same coursework. Because I didn't really see what the difference was outside of the fact that, oh, you had to write an extra paper. Like it. And in fact, anyways, I got a lot to say. I really do. I've got a lot to say about the school system, whether it's K through 12 or college universities. But again, I was sold the propaganda, the bullshit. First of all, your bachelor's degree, you would assume you're going to be coming into at least $50,000 a year. Hogwash. I graduated with my bachelor's and I was working as a custodian at the university, and I was making $7.40 an hour with 2 associate's degrees and a bachelor's. And then my second job after that was at Myers after graduating with a bachelor's degree. And that went at that time it went to $8.15, and then it was $8.65 an hour because I was third shift. Then my next job, I basically was doing a free internship at the radio station, unpaid. It was a great experience, but it was unpaid. And then I was also working for a nonprofit, working with middle school and high school students, helping them get college prep and college ready, and or ready for the military, and or ready to go into the workforce. And that was like $500 every 2 weeks. So that was $250 a week, $1,000 a month with a bachelor's degree. Then I got another job while I had that job, and I was working for another nonprofit, doing work around gender and sexuality, helping people with STD, STI prevention work, education. I was doing all that. And that basically gave me like another $600 or so a month. Those ended, and then I went into another nonprofit. This time I was specifically working in HIV prevention. I was a what you would call a prevention specialist. And so I did a lot of basically the same work that I was doing, except it was more money. So it was like $600 every 2 weeks. And I was in grad school, and I also had a graduate like externship that paid me like $1,000 a month as well. So it was like I was working basically 2 jobs. I was still doing my internships. It was just really wild. And I've never received a quality salary with my bachelor's or my associates. And then with my master's, it's been even more of just a constant slap in the face. Because again, by the time I graduated in April 30th of 2017 with my master's in arts and social sciences, with a concentration on women, gender, sexuality, U.S. history, and politics, And I mean, God, I do economics. I do a little bit of everything because it's a social science, it's sociology. So I graduated and I ended up with, it has gone down. It was $48,000, now it's $46,000. A little over $46,000 of student loan debt. Which, in the grand scheme of things, in comparison to other people, that's not bad at all. Because I know people who owe 200, 300, 400,000 of dollars, honey. We talking 6 figures worth of student loan debt. I was able to get 4 college degrees for under $50,000 in debt. So that's a privilege, that's a blessing. But keep in mind, I had to work my ass off. Scholarships. You're not getting scholarships on 2.0s. Okay, you gotta have a 3.5 and up for most of these scholarships. I'm just gonna keep it real. On top of the fact, you volunteering, you doing an internship, you're still working while you're in school. So, and I was a part of student-led organizations. You know, so it wasn't like I was, this was a walk in the park necessarily. Now, the coursework for me was easy because I had a genuine interest in what I was going into. You feel me? So, and again, what a lot of us are saying, yes, we would like student loan forgiveness, and I think it should happen because we were literally sold bullshit ass lies and falsehoods on what the job market was going to be like, on what type of income we were going to have, on the type of careers we were going to be able to get. We were sold lies. And then it was predatory lending. Like you're telling a 17-year-old to sign off, or someone who doesn't have any background in financial literacy on how these loans work, on how the repayment is, on what the interest rates are. None of that was really discussed. So you got that. So I think we should have student loan forgiveness, and I think that it is predatory lending. And I also want to say this. Okay, if you don't want to forgive the student loans, then pay us our fucking worth. Again, somebody with a master's shouldn't be making less than $60,000 a year. And really, with the cost of living and inflation, shouldn't be making less than $75,000 a year. It's a slap in the face to have us sitting up here going into all of this debt, wasting years of our lives that we can't get back at these useless ass colleges and universities. Well, I'm not going to say useless. The education, the information, the knowledge is valid, is valuable, and very important. But the debt is not. Just for them to turn around and pay you $14.92 an hour and then wonder why you can't get out of debt. How the hell you gonna get out of debt when you make less than what you owe? And then, mind you, you still gotta live day to day. You still gotta pay rent. You gotta pay mortgage. You got kids. You got family. You got utility bills. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you can just save all of the money that you have and just throw it at your student loans. So it's a setup for failure, in my opinion. They knew what they were doing. This is all predatory, in my opinion. Information will be in the description box below, and this is a very long video. I will upload this sometime in April or May. But information is in the description box below. I'm about to go in here and get my workout in. Deuces.